It was supposed to be a simple weekend getaway. A group of six, me, my cousin Marco, our friends Luis, Jessa, Anna, and Paolo, decided to camp in Sitio Malawig, a remote part of Batangas, known for its dense forests and untouched beauty. We had heard stories from the locals. Some are unnatural, but we are so focused on having this trip to get underway and not just another plan going through a piece of paper. Young and eager for adventure, we brushed off their warnings and stay as we planned on how the trip is going to be. It has been a stressful month for us with our jobs, especially Marco, who is a manager of the well-known establishment in the business district. We arrived late in the afternoon, setting up our tents near a dried-up riverbed. As we gathered firewood, we noticed something odd. There were no animals, no birds, no insects, not even the rustling of leaves. It was as if the entire forest was holding its breath. Creepy, Jessa murmured, hugging herself. Marco, always the skeptic, laughed it off. Probably just because of the heat. Let's start the fire. I brought some food from our favorite store earlier, and I'm starving. As night fell, we sat around the flames telling ghost stories. Just to set the mood to a creepy one, knowing Jessa is a scaredy cat. We always find a way on how to get her on her nerves, just for the laughs. The fire crackled, casting eerie shadows on the trees. The silence of the forest made every sound feel louder. The crunch of dry leaves, the distant hoot of an owl. Then we packed up our stuff and went on our tents to have a good night rest. We had a nice little sleep, but minutes past midnight, we heard it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. Not on a tree, not on our tents, but from thin air, as if someone was standing in the middle of our camp, knocking on an invisible door. We froze. Marco, the bravest among us, grabbed a flashlight and shined it around. Nothing. No footprints, no sign of movement. "Must be the wind," he said, but I saw his hands tremble. Anna, visibly shaken, whispered, "My Lola told me stories about this. If you hear 3 knocks at night, don't answer. Don't acknowledge it." We sat in tense silence, waiting. Minutes passed, the fire crackled. Then we heard it again. This time it was closer. Paolo, who had been quiet all night, suddenly stood up. His eyes were unfocused, his face blank. "We should let him in," he murmured. "Who?" Jessa asked, panic rising in her voice. Paolo turned toward the darkness beyond our campsite and took a step forward. Marco grabbed him just in time, shaking him hard. "Paolo, snap out of it!" Paolo blinked, his face returning to normal. He looked around, confused. What happened?" "You were walking away," I said, my voice shaky. "What do you mean? Let him in?" Paolo hesitated, then whispered, "I don't know. I just felt like I had to." That was enough for us. We doused the fire, packed our things in record time, and left. As we hiked back, we heard the knocks again. Following us, always 3 knocks at a time. By the time we reached our van, the knocks had stopped. We drove in silence, our nerves frayed. Nobody wanted to talk about it. We all felt it, the heavy, unseen presence that had been watching us. A week later, we learned the truth. An old woman from the town overheard us discussing our trip. When we mentioned the Sitio Malawig, her face darkened. "Did you hear knocking?" she asked. We nodded. Her expression turned grim. "A long time ago," she began, "a man was lost in that forest. He knocked on a cabin's door, begging to be let in. But the people inside were too afraid. They ignored him. The next morning, they found him dead at their doorstep. Since then, His spirit roams, knocking on doors, tents, anything, waiting for someone to let him in. Chills ran down my spine. Then she looked straight at Paolo and said, "He almost got you, didn't he?" Paolo's face turned pale. He never spoke of that night again, and none of us ever returned to Sitio Malawig. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I still hear it.